people, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's great to have you in my little corner of YouTube where we speak all things adulting, faith, career development, personal development, lifestyle, the works, anything and everything that is relevant for us to navigate our young adult lives. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that red button, better turn gray. Guys, I'm watching the stats, ne? And 60% of you are here consistently, so make sure that subscribe button is thanks. Cool. Give this video a massive thumbs up. Comment down below what you enjoyed about today's video and what other videos you'd like to see. Share this with anybody and everybody who you think might need it. And last but not least, hit those notification bells so that you do not miss another video. So without wasting any more time, let us get straight into today's video. So we're back again with another segment of our Vlogtober career series. And as you can tell, I'm not alone. You guys know this face. So if you guys say it's the first time go back, guys. Go. You know this face. Go back to all the vlogs, all the sit down. We've only done vlogs together. Maybe we haven't done a sit down together. Yeah, all the vlogs. All of them have her because she's the only person that manages to get me out of the house. So best believe. So I'm with my sister today. A very near and dear sister of mine who has been friends with me for almost my whole life at this point, because I'm gonna give her a second to introduce herself, and then we're gonna get into the meat of today's career series. I'm super excited for this one. It means a lot to me simply because I work with these people quite often. So let's get into it. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody, my name is Nkateko Mathebula and I am a psychology student. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. Yeah, cool. That's it.
We'll leave it there. She forgot to mention that she's my sister, she's my bestie, she's my therapist, she's my
unpaid therapist. Thank you.
You haven't given me a rate, so I mean, I don't understand why. But yes, so this is Nkateko Mathebula, and as she mentioned, she's a psychology student, and we will be delving into the career of psychology today. It is a very broad, career field, but she'll be breaking that down for us, unpacking that for us to the best as she can. She also forgot to mention that she's completed her undergrad, she's completed her honors, and she's a pretty big deal, so with that being said, let's get into the first question. I'm gonna hype you up because, girl, if I don't hype you up, who's gonna hype you up?
I mean, okay.
So friend, what is a psychologist?
So a psychologist is basically a mental health practitioner. It's somebody who has specialized and studied in the field of psychology, which is a field that understands or tries to understand brain and mind function and how that influences or impacts your entire well-being, basically. Yeah.
Okay. And your well-being, that also touches on your behaviors.
Yeah. So your behaviors, your thoughts, actions, your perceived conceptions, all of those things, and how they influence your relationships, how they influence your day-to-day, how they influence your career, how they influence your family life, how they influence your relationships. So it's all of those things combined together. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And with that being said, you mentioned that you are a student, but I do know that you have a lot of mentors within the psychology space.
Yeah.
And from them, have they kind of given you an idea of what the day-to-day aspects of your job would look like when you are fully practicing?
Mm-hmm. I think what I love that I've been able to do is I've been able to surround myself with people that are in the field, but people that are doing different things within the field. And that's where you truly see how vast psychology is. There's no one person that's doing the exact same thing. That's other people. There's some people that I know that are working clinically in a hospital. There's a psychologist I know who's doing community work. There's one who's in private practice, but also does other things. There's people that are in education, working with children. So it really is so broad. Even people that do maybe work at a set job or hospital, whatever. They find themselves even in that space doing different things. Okay. So, and then the person that come to mind that I'm thinking about she does work at a hospital, but then also she has private practice as well, and then she might do like outsourced contract work for when she might be needed, whether it's policy creation or things like that. So there really is so much that you can do within the space. So I think it's got a lot to do with maybe branding, marketing, network, but also what is it that you're competent in, what is it that you want to specialize in, and where your interests lie, and then you can build your career based around that.
That will then determine what your daily life looks like, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, cool. So now that you've mentioned that there are so many different, touch points within the psychology space, is there a set like route that one can take to become a psychologist, all the way from high school to the degrees that you need to study throughout your varsity career? What does that look like?
There's a set path, but obviously there are a few differences which we can maybe just touch on. So in high school, I wouldn't say that there are specific subjects that one should take, but I think there are beneficial subjects that one should take. So I definitely do encourage that this is the information that I'm giving, but also do make sure that you do your own research afterwards. Nkateko said nobody, people are going to be like, who is she?
What's going on this channel?
Yeah.
Like, we never say Rori said Nkateko. This is laying the foundation 100%. For you to go and do your own research.
Yeah. So high school wise, I would say biology is beneficial. In your undergrad, you do a lot of child development, brain development, and that's literally where you're given, structure of the brain, where's this, medulla oblongata there, whatever. You need to know all of that stuff. What does this store? The frontal cortex does this sort of thinking. The back, it's, so I think biology helps with all of that stuff, I would suggest pure math if you can, and the reason for that is, in your undergrad, once again, you do stats. So that's meant to help you with your research later on if you go into, or if you do quantitative research, you do statistics, analyzing that data, making sense of it and so forth. So maths will definitely help with that. However, you can do psychology with maths lit. It just means that maybe perhaps you might find the statistics element a little bit more challenging, but it is something that you can learn at a later stage. So if you know that, look, that's not your strong point, just already go in knowing that, okay, this is a space that I'm going to need help in, and make sure that you put, the help in place. So that's high school. And then I would say English. Okay, so English I think is a prerequisite anyway, but I think it's beneficial in that that's where you develop your writing skills. Let me tell you, in psychology, all you're going to do is write.
Hey!
All you are going to do is write. I think, so for undergrad, my exams were multiple choice. And then there was like one or two where I wrote.
Those essay exams. Even I'm traumatized.
But yeah, honest year, they didn't care anymore. They were like, it's not about what you know. It's now about how you apply it. So every single assignment, every single hand in, every single reflection paper, it's your writing. So if your writing skills are not up to par, it's definitely something that you're going to struggle with. But I say this having in mind that there is room for growth in that space, because the way I was writing when I was,
her writing has changed
undergrad to how I'm writing now, that has also changed. And then, I'm being taught how to reflect on my own journey and write that in a way that people can then relate to and connect to emotionally as well. I think that's one of the things as well that I think if you can develop that in your high school, that's great. Another way that you can develop that is that if you read a lot, because you're able to see, okay, this is how this person is writing. What is that writing making me feel? How can I write in a way that makes the reader feel, or sense what I'm actually trying to get them to learn? So that's high school. When you get to undergrad, now this is your first 3 or 4 years of varsity, depending on where you go. So if you're wanting to go into educational psych, a bachelor in education is normally beneficial because you are mostly going to work in the educational setting, working with children, possibly working in a school. It's not to say you can't deviate and work elsewhere, but that is primarily the scope of practice for an educational psychologist. So your undergrad would be one in education, and then obviously you would major in psychology from the beginning to the end of your degree. So that is the option. If you're wanting to go into organizational psychology. Has it changed now? I think it's called something else now.
It's called
industrial psychology now.
Yeah.
So that's more the corporate. So you could definitely do, a bachelor of art, but then you'd have to take your HR subjects. You'd have to, the businessy subjects need to be incorporated in that, because you are going to be primarily working in the business setting.
Yeah, makes sense.
Even if you do private practice, your clientele is most likely going to be corporates. And then if you want to clinical psychology, then it's a general BA will suffice, and this is the same for clinical and counseling psychology. A general BA will suffice, and then from there on you do your honors, and then you would then at your master's level, that's when you then branch out and go into either your counseling psychology or your clinical psychology. And then obviously for educational as well, there'll be an educational psychology cohort as well that you can go into. And the last one that I'm thinking of is your research psychology.
Oh, I've never heard of research psychology.
Yeah, so research psychology, so these people basically inform or work behind the scenes of what we then use in practice. So these are the people that are creating the knowledge, doing the research, coming up with more studies that inform how people behave, how they develop, and all of that stuff.
And that then goes into your textbooks.
Yes, in your textbooks that we use and whatever. So they're constantly updating this data because things change
all the time.
The time. So obviously at master's level, you do research, and you, as whether you're a counseling psychologist, educational psychologist, or even clinical, you do contribute to that research. And if you want to go to the PhD level, then you would also contribute to research. But the research psychologist, that is the primary base of what they do. So they scope of practice would not heavily include, if anything actually would not include maybe the one-on-one therapy or whatever. Maybe they would be equipped to use those skills when they're doing maybe when they're doing maybe research interviews and so forth, so that they just know how to implement those skills in that space so that they can calculate the data and so forth. But that's not your main scope of practice. You just make sure that you get the research going.
Okay. Had I known about the research psychology, that's probably something that I would have gone into. Because me one-on-one with like people, you know how I am. But I can definitely sit at a desk and like study and read papers and write on that and stuff. So that's actually something pretty interesting.
And I think when you're saying that, it just goes to add that the academic space is open to all of these psychologies. So research psychologists can still lecture at university, counseling, clinical, industrial, all of these can still
go into academia
as well. So that is another option in terms of what you can do, and hence our day-to-days will not look the same.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. And now that you've broken down what one needs to study, what are the steps after that? So a few videos ago, we had a medical doctor on the channel, and she was telling us how after your studies, you then do internship and ComServe and all of that, and then you can fully go into practice. So what does that look like within the psychology space?
Okay, so I'm going to start with clinical. So for clinical psychology, so initially you've completed your undergrad, you've completed your honors. Thereafter, you go in and you do your master's. So for master's, there's a whole selection. It's called selection week, where you go in, you do interviews. They look for various things that I can't really pinpoint, but each university is looking for different things, and they want to see, are you able, to connect to clients? Are you able, is your personality and who you are suited to this field? There's a whole lot of things that they're looking for. And you go through that week, and normally you start out maybe 50, between, maybe 30 to 60 people, depending on which university that you do selection week at. And then they take between 4 and 12. I think Wits is probably one of the highest intakes, and they take 12 interns well, not interns, but 12 candidates from there for masters. So then you do your master's year 1, so that's called M1. And then in M2, that is your internship year. Okay. This is clinical, remember? So you do your internship year. So the M1, you are doing your, there's different courses that you're doing with different modules basically. You are doing client work, you're seeing clients, whether it's community clients, clients within the school, the university environment, but you're seeing clients, you have allocated clients. There's certain hours that you must do, which may vary for universities and so forth. And then you're also doing your research all in 1 year. So there's a lot going on here. Okay, cool. And then thereafter you go into your M2, which is your internship year. So depending on which university you're at, you might need to apply for internships, or some universities have agreement with certain internship places for clinical, and then they place you at various hospitals and so forth, and that's where you would primarily work. So you would complete your M1 here. Then you could either write your board exam in the M2 year, in the M2 year, either in October or the following year in January.
Okay.
Then after that, you have your community service year. So this is for clinical psychologists. They have the ComServe year, so that's where you need to community service. It's gonna possibly be at a hospital once again. Some people do it at a prison as well. And that's where you're primarily working. You do your ComServe, that's 1 year. You're contracted basically to the government for that year. And thereafter, then you're able to go find work and, develop yourself however it is that you want to do. But you have to do that ComServe year.
And
for
the
you
board
to,
exam.
Yeah, and the board exam for you to go through.
And there's only one board exam?
Yes, one board exam.
For clinical?
Yes. And then moving on to counseling as well as educational. Those ones just have your intern year.
Okay.
So you just have to do your intern year, so that's your M2, and obviously you included M1 as well. And then you do your M2, but you don't have ComServe.
Okay.
So after your M2, you write your board exam. After that, you're qualified, good to go. You can.
And you can call you doctor then?
No, there's only in psychology. You're only doctor if you go the PhD route.
Personally, she said as doctor in my phone. So
no, only after PhD. Then yeah, it's not. It's very different to medicine, basically.
You're still a doctor in my phone, so PhD is knocking here.
Yeah, the pressure.
No pressure, but I'm just saying that. Listen, I've already saved you as doctor, and I've already spoken to God about this. So best believe,
girl. Yeah, you and God can sort that out.
Oh wow.
So that's pretty much the route with the educational and the counseling. Once you're done, then you can go into whether you want to go into private practice, whether you want to continue working, all of those stuff. But I think whatever cohort that you go into, just know that you will continuously need to be studying. There's something called CPD points, and that's continuous development. So you need, I don't know how many it is a year, I'm not at that level yet to know, but you need to constantly be learning. As I said, psychology is always improving, it's changing, people are always constantly making contributions, and you need to make sure that you stay on par with the knowledge that is out there, so that you can continue to help your clients, help your patients if you're in a clinical setting, to the best of your ability, to also ensure that you constantly adhere to ethical standards, because those also slightly change or differ in different contexts. When you're working with children, then the laws, you need to always be up to date with them. If there's a law change, you need to know this law affects children, it now has changed, how does it affect my practice, how do I make sure that I'm constantly ethical? Because the HPCSA, which is basically the board that governs a lot of health professionals, their duty is to protect the public. So now if you're not up to date with ethical standards and you're not implementing them correctly, you could put people at harm, which is not what this career is about. So you need to exactly. So you need to make sure that you're always on top of things. And the lines can be so blurred. Like it sounds difficult to make an ethical mistake, but sometimes it's literally like a minor ethical dilemma that you've overlooked. And hence it's important for you to always be on par on this. It's important for you to constantly be going to supervision. So this is where you engage with other psychologists to be like, okay, this is the client that I have, obviously anonymously, because confidentiality is important in this field, but this is what's going on, can you contribute? So you now have, input from other psychologists as well that are coming together to make sure that you get the best service and you get best equipped for whatever it is that you're going through. So it's a very serious career, if I can put it that way.
Okay, now that's interesting. I think a lot of people downplay psychology to just, I'm going to therapy and we keep it moving, right?
Or that you're just having conversations.
Exactly, and it's more than that.
Oh,
it's more than that.
That's not what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've touched on this already, but can you just give us a high-level view? You just need to touch on their titles, but what those different psychologists are. So we've spoken about counseling psychology.
Yeah.
We've spoken about clinical psychology, industrial psychology, educational psychology, research psychology.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
I'm a good student, guys.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks.
So I want to mention that those are the 5 registered in South Africa. In other countries, there's forensic psychology. That is not a registered cohort in South Africa. The 5 that we mentioned are the ones that are recognized. But for people that want to go into forensics with the psychology background, they normally study clinical psychology, and then they'll build up that competency, whether it's through courses or modules or seminars or whatever that speak to the forensic element. And obviously then they would practice in forensic environments so whether that means working at a prison, working with certain officials, working in with lab investigations, all that stuff, so you can build that competency.
No, that's interesting. And I'm glad that we actually have quite a lot, because obviously we could all have the passion of wanting to do good within the psychology field, but we all have different personalities. Like we were saying earlier, I probably would have thrived within the research academia space, and so forth. So I'm glad that we have so many different ones. That way, that it's not, just limited to the 2 that are in people's faces as much as they are. So that's cool. You also mentioned after your M1 that you either go into internship or you go into for clinical, you then do ComServe after that. What does that entry level salary look like? And this is obviously dependent on where you're working, and all of that stuff. But what is that range looking like, so that the viewers can prepare themselves and budget accordingly if they're looking to go into this career field?
So for this one, I'll focus on the 3. I'm not highly exposed to the industrial psychology and the research. However, the other 3 I'll be able to speak about. And this is quite sensitive because the differences are so vast.
Yeah.
But I hope that you will see past these differences, guys. Don't let this difference be the reason that you choose your cohort. Please hear me and hear me well. Like, do the right thing, guys. Please. Come on. Okay?
Listen to
money is great to have. I think we do need money, and we need to be honest about, how it makes our lives better. But I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if that is the reason or the sole reason why you choose a certain path or route. And then maybe we could speak about like what the differences are, or like how which one to go into. But now that we hear at the prices, so for counseling internships, it can be anything. So from what I've been exposed to this year, and maybe there are differences, people will maybe comment down below, but it ranges from, so I'm going to start with the lower range because the one range honestly is an outlier. So it ranges from anything between 4 and 20,000 rand. This is before tax. Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah.
Per month, right? Let's put that
per month. And then the higher end, the outlier could be around 40 to 50.
That is a massive jump.
Yeah, it's a massive jump, and it definitely does depend on where it is that you work. Places like the military, which is one of those that have that outlier, are those that would pay that. But if we kick out the outlier, because that one was the only one that I was in contact with, then the range is basically between 4 and 20. So I think if you want to gauge how much you're going to get, trying to put yourself in the middle of that 10 is a safer space to put yourself.
Makes sense. And that was for
counseling.
Psychology.
And we can definitely have a conversation about, you know, how it should be more whatever, but that's different video, you know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know. For educational side, it's about the same. But I think, so for that, same. Anything between 4 and maybe 15, and then the higher end would be, so there is no educational space in the military, for example. So I think, that we can say about the same between the 4 and the 20 as well, depending on where you go. Some private schools will pay out a bit more, and that's where you might get the 15 to 20.
Right.
And some other places would be NPOs. So the funds would not be as available, but you get the training that you need, because you constantly have an influx of clients that are coming in. So the experience that you would get from there would be totally beneficial to you and the practice that you can create moving forward. So definitely motivational factor. And then for the cleanse, Bandla.
It's not the
the cleanse. Y'all are living it up, yo.
I say this in every video. I feel like I chose the wrong career.
So the cleanse, I think, so for them, it could literally be, you know, anything between 30 and 60.
That's just like
before tax. Because most of them are working at the hospital.
I'm here to make a public service announcement to my mom and my dad that I'm coming back home because I'm going back to school.
But listen, you're going to work for your money.
Of course.
You are going to work for your... Yeah.
Of course.
By the time you get it, you'll be like, yes.
Yeah, I worked for it. I earned every
You know, just think about how full hospitals are, how the clientele at the hospitals are, the number of people that are coming in, the type of service that you're able to give. So you literally are going to be putting in that work. And in the first 6 months of internship, you're not allowed to take leave. So take your vitamins, take your whatever
B12
minerals that you
shots,
need, whatever.
everything.
Make sure that you're not getting sick, because you need to make sure that you're doing. And your day is like a 7 to 4. I think you get like a 30-minute break somewhere in between, but your day is going to be full. So by the time you are done, you are done. You know, for counseling, you are working more in a lot of people are either in the university or school setting, NPO setting, similar for educational as well. It's just educational would be often a lot more the primary school, working with primary school kids or even toddlers, because play therapy and all of that stuff. So, you know, that work environment, it's still a lot. You're still going to be working, or maybe even working above what you feel like you're getting out of it. But I think just think about the experience that you're getting through this.
And the value you're creating.
Exactly. Just because psychology is being undervalued in South Africa doesn't mean what you're doing is not of value. So that's why I was saying, please hear me and hear me well. We might all want to run too clinical because of how much it pays out after internship and so forth. But I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that it's more of a value thing, and psychology being undervalued maybe, you know, systematically, but let that not derail you into the impact that you can make in people's lives, and choosing a cohort that is best suited to you, that is best suited to your values, that is best suited to the work that you actually want to do post
studies.
Or post your studies, post your ComServe. Because I think what I've also noticed is somebody would, you know, want to be in the clinical space and study clinical psychology, and then afterwards, after your ComServe,
let me go the
then someone is now practicing in, you know, counseling setting, and maybe entirely not doing
what they actually
clinical work and what you know what they said that it is that they want. And not to say that clinical psychologists can't go into private practice. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying in terms of the type of work that you're suited to do. So all of these actually have something different and something very valuable to offer. Just make sure that you align yourself accordingly.
Okay, no, that's good. That's very. The range is very vast, I think, And I think now that we're having this conversation, based off of previous conversations that we've had in our private settings, now things are starting to come to light about why you know, had certain frustrations and why you were happy about certain things as well. So it makes sense. It makes sense. But at the end of the day, I think the point of this specific question is make sure that whatever you choose is aligned with what you want to do, where you see yourself, and the value that you see yourself creating within your sphere.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. I think another curious question that I have is, can one do the work of a psychologist without having studied anything psychology related? So let me not say anything psychology related, but not a psychology degree. For example, our previous guest that was a medical doctor, she spoke about the clinical associates that come in and are able to kind of bridge that gap between a doctor and a nurse. So basically they do the work of a doctor, but like low-key do the work of a, like they're in that middle. Is there anything like that within the psychology space?
Now that you're mentioning, I'm actually remembering like two, like, I don't want to say spin-offs, but like the sub careers of psychology that we maybe can get into. But to answer the question that you asking or posing forth, you can, very highly illegal. I don't recommend. I do not recommend. I think when you're in this field, it's important for you to be upfront and specific about what your skills are, what you're equipped to do, and what it is that you're actually doing. There are people that are lay counselors, and I have no disrespect for any of them. That is, you know, something that I do, and I serve a church, and you know, and I think it's helpful and beneficial. But also, we need to be honest about whether or not it is psychology, which it's not. Like, there's a whole different set of skills that you're being taught, or that you're going to be taught in your master's year, that's going to differentiate you from a lot of other fields. And then to move on to the I don't know what to call them, but the two other careers that I didn't mention. This is psychometry and a registered counselor. Okay. So a registered counselor is somebody who has you've done your undergrad in you know, BA psychology. Then in your honors year you move on to do a professional degree, which is the registered counselor degree. This one is 18 months, and it also includes, I think it's a 750 hours of community service, where you are getting that experience and engagement with people. So the biggest difference with a registered counselor and a psychologist is scope of practice in terms of what you're able to do, and also you do not diagnose. So they're allowed to do specific assessments, and then I don't think they interpret those assessments like completely, or they have some there are some limitations when it comes to the assessments, but also there's no diagnosis that takes place. And then there's also psychometry, so this is heavily like assessment based, all the psychological assessments, that's where your career tests, all of that, so they are specializing in that. And then also, once again, they don't fully interpret those results. They might have to work hand in hand with a psychologist and so forth, but those are viable careers. And it's helpful to get into as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So you've shared a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
You should listen. I feel like I've gone through a whole psychology textbook at this point. Listen, I thought I knew a lot about what you do, but clearly there's a lot that I didn't know.
There's a lot going on here.
Okay, so in closing, I wanted to find out if there's any advice or pearls of wisdom that you would want to share with the audience, especially if they're trying to embark on, you know, the psychology route. I know it hasn't been the easiest for you. So I just want to know if there's any nuggets that you could leave with them before we close out the video.
Can I pause on this and then backtrack a little bit?
And
then we'll come back. I'm just thinking in my head, someone's thinking, okay, there's psychology so vast, like how do I know what field to go into? And I don't think I fully have the answers for you when it comes to that. I think for me, like I did my research, I had people around me. I remember calling Auntie Jules and saying to her, like, look, this is what I'm thinking, is a clinical, is a counseling, give me the pros and cons of both. She told me the money here is going to be more than, whatever. I'm like, just give it to me raw and I'll take it and I'll, decide for myself. But I just want to go into maybe just speak about the differences or what it is, the focus of the different fields. So we spoke about the research psychology, that it's mostly research and bringing into that knowledge into the space. The counseling, you work with mild to moderate mental illnesses, and obviously you work outside of like the clinical space, so your scope of practice is not focused on a lot of the forensic stuff, which is often taken to the clinic. You don't do medical legal work unless obviously you've built that competency, but in terms of scope of practice, the way it is, that's not like a focus for you if you go the counseling route. But something that is geared specific to the counseling cohort is career counseling. So this is where you come in, we do a career test, we speak about, look, what is people in your family doing, how could their work be affecting you, how could your mental health be affecting your job choices moving forward, how do, sometimes people come through and I don't want to say midlife crisis, but you realize, oh my word, I'm in the wrong career, but I need the money that I'm getting for this career for a life. Then you come into us and we're like, okay, this is what you're doing, this is what your interests are. How can you balance your need for financial gain, but also balance it with something that you're interested in? Because you often find that if you're in the wrong career, you're going to be miserable.
Agreed.
That's personally how my depression started. So people think, no, it's just a minor thing, it's just a job. No, guys, everything that you do, breathe, eat, Alice will affect your mental health. So career counseling is something that is specifically geared towards the counseling degree. Educational psychologist, you work in the educational space, you work with kids, and not to say that the other two will not work with kids. So maybe if your child is struggling with adjustment that's not school related, that's more life or family related, so that's someone, then they could go to a counseling psychologist. If a child has a mental illness or disorder, and maybe it's more towards the severe, so maybe like a schizophrenia or there's some psychosis, then clinical would make sense. And like sometimes children even need to get admitted. If you're admitted, chances are you're going to be with a clinical psychologist. So now when I'm speaking educational side, I'm speaking maybe children with autism, children that struggle with learning, with writing, with, they have learning disabilities, your dyslexia, is it math related, is it words related? So that's more the educational side of things.
Would occupational therapy fall under educational?
No, occupational therapy is completely different cohort, but it's similar in that there are some overlaps in terms of the psychology element is there. But what an occupational therapist is, to my knowledge, is somebody that is meant to facilitate your day-to-day practices. So that could be like a whole range of things. So for example, when my gran was unwell, she saw an occupational therapist who was helping her with be rehabilitated back into the day-to-day tasks. So being able to dress herself, being able to walk, being able to undress herself, being able to cook, so all of that stuff. And I know it's a lot more vast that I'm speaking of, but I think I'm going to end it there because I don't know enough about the career to speak about it. I think that's that. But just think about the work that you're doing. I think for me, counseling, psychology, I think makes sense for me and made sense in terms of my applications and all of that stuff, because I was just thinking about the community that I've grown up in and the community work that I want to do. And also last year I was at Hospivision and I worked at the hospital and I was like, hospital environment, not for me.
It wasn't fun.
It wasn't fun for me.
Even for me as your friend, it wasn't fun for you.
So for me, I knew, I'm like, I've been in a space where I was in a career or space that I didn't like and it affected me so much mentally. So there's not enough money that you can give me to go work in a space that would make me unhappy. No. So I would just say, look at what your values are, look at what your traits are, but also try as much as possible to engage with people that are in certain fields and doing different things, because that would then be able to help you and equip you and to expose you to what it is that they do and make it easier for you to decide what cohort it is that you want to go into. But at the end of the day, I think this is similar with all of them. Make sure that you really do have a passion for people, and make sure that you're open-minded, because I think sometimes what you think you're going to be doing in the field is not what you end up doing in the field, but also the attitude that you approach doing or approach the process that gets you to where you need to go also says a lot about the type of practitioner that you'll be once you get there. Then coming back to your last question, you said words of wisdom.
Yes.
Which I kind of feel like I incorporated,
Yes.
but I think if I'm to be plain and simple, this might not resonate with everybody, but I think it's something that has resonated with me, and that's what has kept me in this journey through the failures, through the not making it through selection week, through a whole lot of things, and that is to trust God. Like, when I dropped out of medicine, like, it was clear that, look, this is not where you need to be. But this time around, even when I failed, even when I've not made it, I've gotten rejection letter after rejection letter, there's constantly being that I don't want to still voice that's like, you're at the right place.
Okay.
There's constantly been that confirmation to be like, my child, keep going. And I think that speaks to what I want to leave people with, to be like, trust God, man. The process is there, but God is God of the process. So rather bypass trusting the process and trust God directly. And I think that for me is what works. It's what reminds me of my why. Like, if I think of God, I'm like, okay, God placed me here for a reason. So when I constantly think of that, it gives me my reason for my why. It gives me my reason to continue going on. It gives me the reason why I don't quit, even though it's hard. All of those things are covered by me saying, you know what, I'm going to trust God. Even when I fail or don't get in, or sometimes I'm like, people are like, how's the year going? Are we going to make it this time around? And I'm just like, I don't know. And I remember a brother of mine said, no, but who are we trusting? And by that virtue, I was able to be like, you're 100% right. This time around, it's going to work out.
We're trusting God.
It's not as easy. I wish it was. But honestly, this is an easier said and done video.
Of course.
But it still needs to be said.
Yes.
It still needs to be done. Cry, throw your toys out the cot, feel every emotion, do whatever it is, but when you're done, dust yourself off and be like, we are trusting God, we are going to try again, and we're going to do it again.
Amen. Sure. I think she's speaking to me, not necessarily because I'm going through this career, path, but in the season that I find myself in my life right now as well. Very, very, very relevant words. So trust God.
Last thing, I promise.
No,
I
listen,
promise.
it's your channel, it's not mine.
I promise. Last thing, guys, and I say this not because I'm glamorizing the space, ne? So it's one of those, it's not Nkateko said no. But I'm going to say go to therapy. And if you are resistant to that space and you want to be a psychologist one day, ask yourself where that resistance comes from. Because why are you resistant to going to the very that you want to be? Think about, why is it that one day people must trust you with their lives, with their secrets, with their mess, and bring it to you when you yourself are not able to do the same thing?
Sure. So
find that psychologist that you are, that's maybe going to be closest to you, that's going to be able to give you the rates that you want. Be as specific as you want. If you want a black lady with blue hair, with whatever, you might not find her, but be as specific as you want in terms of the psychologist that you need to be. But yeah, go to therapy.
Love it. Okay.
I'm done.
And she means that. She
Yeah.
means that. I think not even if you want to be a psychologist, in general, guys. And really, it's not something to glamorize, like you said. Therapy is not cute.
It's work.
Guys, I hate it. And after every session, I call Nkateko and I'm like, girl, I don't know why you convinced me.
And I'm like, you know what? We're going to do it again next week.
Exactly. And I hate it. But there is so much awareness that comes out of therapy. And this isn't this isn't a mental health conversation, but I just want to touch on that because it's the journey that I'm taking, that there's so much awareness that comes out of therapy. based off of your behaviors, based off of how you think, based off of certain things that you say. And it's like, oh, okay, there's certain things that I'm holding on to, or there's certain things that have affected me in a way that I never realized until somebody asked me in a specific way.
And the thing is that it will always come out.
Exactly.
You might not know it, but next thing someone's making a joke with you,
and you're like,
and someone's like, oh, like,
it's
what
not
happened?
Deep, but
and it goes a lot deeper than you would know about. So, but I think I'm specifically posing this forth to
psychology students.
Yeah, I think people have vast reasons why they're not going to therapy, and you're going to meet them where they're at one day when you get those clients. But I think if you are in that field or wanting to go into this field,
you need to consider it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, friend. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and thank you so much for being honest and open with us as well, especially about the different career streams, how to choose them, and it's not all about the money. And I think as the young generation, we're all about the hustle and bustle, secure the bag, and people just run for the money. And
if God put you there, the money will come.
Exactly.
He will give you the vision, and everything else he will take care of. Guys, I know I sound delulu, and if I am, it's okay. But I've really seen God provide for me in ways that I could have never expected. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But
it's not
God.
It's not
no, guys, it's God. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much once again, and thank you to you guys. If you've watched until this far and you have not subscribed, I'm giving you a side eye, because what are you doing? Like, not only will you see my face on a weekly basis, you'll see hers very often as well, because like I said, she's the only person that gets me out of the house. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share this with anybody and everybody in your circle. If you haven't watched any of the previous Vlogtober career series videos, make sure to check those out. Even if it's not a career field that you want to go into, but just for knowledge, being able to walk into a circle of people in a networking session and being able to speak something that makes sense because you actually know about it says volumes, speaks volumes about the type of person that you are. So definitely go back, go check them out, and we will see you in the next video with so much love and so much light from me to you. Have an incredible rest of the day. Stay safe and God bless. Bye, guys.